Hello guys, what's up? It's Midway here, and well, welcome back. It's been a while. It's been a while since we last did one of these videos, and it's now season 2. So I guess we got a lot of stuff to talk about. So yeah, drop a like and subscribe if you haven't done so, please. I would really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm also streaming on twitch.tv/midwayeu as always. So let's get right into this key, shall we? Alright, Season 2. What's new? What's new? I guess at this point everybody kind of knows what's up with Season 2, right? We got the new affix, we got the shards of domination, kind of getting a bit into Mythic Plus. People that don't really want to do, just don't really want to raid them in, kind of fucked up by that, right? But I guess everybody that does PvE kind of has to dabble a bit into raiding if they want to be any kind of successful. So in my eyes it's fine, of course. I do raid Mythic anyway, but yeah, for sure this is kind of one of those things where people will be annoyed if they don't really raid that much. Anyhow, I guess we can have a little chat about the new affix, right? In my opinion it's kind of dull. I guess everybody expected a little bit more when the stuff about anime powers was leaked, right? Everybody thought that it might be a bit of an RNG fiesta at first, that it could be a bit of a shit show, especially when you are like trying to push high keys and stuff. But the way they've actually implemented it turns out to be, at least in my opinion, not that exciting. Even though some of the powers are alright, for the most part, especially for Holy Paladin, that is not, it's not exciting, let's just call it that. You pretty much end up just picking the same every time, and the only kind of randomness, if you so want to call it like that, it is where the guys, the what do you call, the tormented guys will be around the dungeon. But that's also just a rotation that's like not that, it doesn't really change that much, right? It only changes like once every 2 weeks, and like it's the same guy but in a different place every time. So it ends up being very deterministic, which is really the opposite of what we thought this was gonna be like. But anyway, at least I guess it removes the RNG part of it, so it's not that bad, but it is definitely not very exciting. Now that being said, the monsters themselves and the whatever you call the tormented guys themselves are not that bad. I mean, they're kind of enjoyable, they're not bad at all. There's a lot of room to min-max when you want to pull the guys, with what packs, if you want to pull anything into them, which you want to skip. And even though a lot of people are being, I've seen a lot of people complaining about the slow guy, or like the guy that slows you when you're like when you don't kill him and you have to kill him on the, or like deal with him on the final boss. Yeah, it can be very annoying to have the slow on you, and whenever you're pushing high keys, it's kind of encouraged to always skip this guy, because of course it doesn't give the best powers and it's a bit of a time sink anyway. And since like, of course you can always just dodge and move out of stuff before anything kills you, it's always best to, if you can and you can afford to, skip that guy. But the rest of the guys are alright. I mean, you don't really play anything else besides that and Sagadon with the last boss, because of course you're always gonna get the DPS powers. So I don't know, it doesn't, like, the guys are okay to kill. The mechanics are not that exciting, also not that threatening, unless you're like overlapping with some very nasty affixes, like for example Grievous, which I'm still yet to see with the Executioner guy. That might be fucked up, but we'll see when that comes around. But overall, I don't know, I don't mind the guys. They're fine. They're kind of fun to deal with. I like the Executioner, just like trying to LOS, or like, I don't know, see what the group has to deal with it, immunities and stuff, popping and whatever. The fire dude, I don't know what the name of that guy is, but he's alright. I mean, he's kind of okay to heal through. What I like to do is like move the beacon out of the tank, cause okay, so I guess we gotta talk about what talents we're using now in Season 2 as well. But for the most part, what I like to do is, or what I've been trying to do as of recently, is like move the beacon away from the tank, and like get double beacon. Of course, you should already be playing double beacon, but you move one beacon away from the tank and you put it on somebody who's like gonna take a lot of damage from that. So you like, the tank should be able to self-sustain to that. And that just gives you an easier time to heal for that guy. So you have one beacon on a DPS and another beacon on another DPS or on yourself. So that guy, that pretty much just makes that guy not a problem at all. Especially if you keep up, or you are on point with the dispels and you don't fall behind with those. I'm always trying to make sure that you dispel the person that's the most squishy or that has the least ways of defending against that, taking damage. What are the other guys? I mean, Sagaran, whatever. Sagaran is omega huge because of the 50% increased self-healing or yeah, increased self-healing or healing on yourself, which combined with the double beacon makes up it makes so that the healing transfer to Recon is insane. So the way you do or the way you play around that power is you heal yourself, or you try to do it. You try to heal yourself at least, so that you can maximize the healing transfer through the beacon. So you don't really want to be beaconing yourself. That's what a lot of people have been doing, and I don't know, I think it's a bit of a mistake. If you're picking the 50% increased self-healing, you should not be beaconing yourself. You should be beaconing somebody else and the tank. Usually the tank, of course. Unless you're playing with the Blood Decay, which you might be able to like get out or you know, not have to beacon the Blood Decay. But for the most part you do have to, so in that case it's still fine. But yeah, you wanna be abusing that power as much as you can, because it is a lot of increase. Like, it makes your life so much easier. You're basically almost immortal with so much healing on yourself. And you can also pick the shield for sure. A lot of people are picking the shield. It's also very safe, but I think that the 50% increased healing on yourself is massive. So you should definitely be looking to pick that one. In terms of the powers from the Executioner that we're seeing right here, for the most part, I've just been going with Dagger, but I don't know. Dagger is obviously a strong option, right? Because getting crit on the item, like getting crit from the thingy, the anima power, if you can like get it, if you get mastery, that's fucked up. But if you get crit, that is a huge increase, not only just in terms of healing, but of course in terms of damage. And what we are looking to do here, especially if you're looking to push high keys, is to squeeze as much damage as you can from anywhere. So Dagger is the only option that kind of does that. It gives you a little bit more healing and a little bit more damage. You could go with the anima sphere, or whatever you call those, the one that gives you the mana orbs. Those are fine. I mean, it saves time for sure. It does save a lot of time if you don't have to sit at all, but you're missing out on that increased amount of damage. So there's a case to be made where, depending on the position of the Executioner, you might wanna be picking the mana orbs, because you might be able to benefit a lot from not having to take mana breaks like I am doing right now. But for the most part, you are almost always able to get a proper mana break without really like having to wait for too long. So I don't know, I guess it's up for debate whether it's worth or not, and depends a lot on where the positioning of that guy is, or you know, on the dungeon and stuff. And yeah, I guess I'm not missing out on anything, right? I mean, yeah, I haven't really talked about the Frost Guy powers. Frost Guy powers are, I mean, I've just been picking the increased eating rate, the one that makes you drink faster or eat faster and get the food left faster. And that's about like everything else is just like not really helpful. It's a bit of a lackluster power, and that's also why you're always gonna skip that, guys, as much as possible. But it does help. Like, usually you get that power like one of the last ones, so I guess it helps a little bit. But for the most part, I don't really have that power throughout most of the dungeons. So yeah, it's okay having it so that you can like omega fast sit and have like drink mana or whatever. It is not that big. It's okay. It's I guess that one's one of the most boring ones in general. And of course, I was missing out on the Fire Guy's power. The Fire Guy, usually you want to be picking up the Pedestal. Pedestal gives you a shitload of base haste, and that's just all we want, really. More haste, more damage, and more healing. That's basically the strongest option out of the Fire Guy's powers. Of course, it comes with the downside of you are taking damage every couple seconds while in combat, which, yeah, overall, throughout an entire dungeon, it will amount to a lot of damage. It will amount to a lot of damage taken on yourself. But honestly, I don't really feel it. Like, it's not that big. You don't really feel it that much. Especially, of course, you are the healer. You are in control of all the healing, and you should never die from something like 3% HP like every couple seconds. It's okay. It's definitely okay. Especially if you have the Sagaran power with the 50% increased self-heal. So definitely worth taking that for the increased haste, regardless of the damage taken. I guess we also gotta go a bit over the towns that we're playing this season. There's been a bit of a couple changes. Mainly we are now playing Hammer of Light, just mainly for the damage, honestly. It does some healing. It is always nice to have it as a healing backup, AoE healing, whatever. But overall, the main use of that spell is just like damage. Honestly, you just go into a big pack, you drop it with wings or any other damage increase that you can find. And that's about it. You just drop it in the middle of the pack and try and get as much value out of it in terms of damage. Why we're not playing Crusader's Might? Well, Crusader's Might doesn't give as much damage as Light's Hammer. That's the first one. And the second one is that, yeah, our mana has been nerfed. Now we are a bit more likely to get throughout the fight. So, especially doing Tyrannical, now that we have to play Tyrannical in order to get the most score possible. It is not ideal to be playing Crusader's Might during weeks where the bosses are like 3 to 4 minutes long easily. You will get I mean, I'm already going easily on like 2-minute fights if I like dump all in like just doing damage mainly. So Light's Hammer kind of helps in that regard, as well as giving us a bit more damage. It might take a while to get used to not playing with Crusader's Might, but honestly it's not that bad. We're more than capable of like healing through anything still. And Light's Hammer just feels pretty good to throw and like see all the little light, arcing light, whatever beams that just go around. It feels like you're doing more damage than you would usually do with just dropping Consecration. Because let's be honest, Consecration is a little bit underwhelming in like its visual impact. But anyhow, that's the main change. As I said already before, we are also playing Double Beacon for the most part. Although you can still play Glimmer, Glimmer still amounts to a little bit more healing, especially on the tank, because the beacon transfer is increased a lot by having Glimmer, because all the replicates from Glimmer proccing also go through the beacon, so that's a lot of healing on the tank. But nowadays we're for the most part just playing with the Guardian Druids, which barely need any healing, especially during Incarn. So healing on the tank kind of irrelevant, really. We're benefiting much more from using the 50% increase self-healing thingy and the Double Beacon. Honestly, it's making our life way easier. And that also takes us to the next point: Holy Avenger versus Divine Purpose. Now, we used to be playing Holy Avenger for the most part because it was very useful during Prides, and there was also the case to be made with playing Double Beacon for very high keys where Prides were being a massive bitch. They were very hard. Now the thing is, Pride is gone, right? Pride is gone, and that means that we don't really need Holy Avenger anymore. It is certainly nice for some dungeons where there's a lot of very bursty healing and you might want to have some more cooldowns at your disposal, but honestly, Divine Purpose just feels way nicer to play with. It gives you more damage, it increases the amount of procs you will get with Awakening, it just gives you more uses of any Holy Power spender in general that Holy Avenger would. So I'd much rather prefer it. If you want a bit more control, there's still the case to be made, but honestly, I think Divine Purpose is just more damage and more healing in general, and just safer overall throughout a key, unless you really want to get through that one pack that might like destroy you. For example, the Portal Guardians in Theater of Pain now here. You might want to be playing Holy Avenger for those if you're kind of like not being able to get through them, but I would really advise to try and play with Divine Purpose, get used to it, because it will be much better in the long run. And that's about all the different talent changes that that have happened, really. In terms of stats, stats are honestly the same. We still want to be stacking burst. Burst is definitely the best thing we can get out of stats. Haste, I mean, you could say that haste has lost some slight value due to the fact that we might go but right now I'm kind of struggling to get some haste in my gear, honestly. I'm like low haste and low mastery. I'm kind of like all over the place, so I don't know. I don't think you should like shy away from getting any sort of haste, but obviously always prioritizing getting some more versatility when possible. Yes, the gear from PvP has now been slightly nerfed, you could call it, since it's not the highest item level that it can be. You will always prefer to use, for the most part, pieces from the raid in the highest difficulty that you can attain, and mainly because of also the domination shards, which we'll talk about in a second as well. But yeah, in terms of gear, you're most likely gonna be wanting to get as many pieces from the raid as possible, unless it's like gonna be like if you can get something from PvP that's gonna be higher item level than from your raiding experience or whatever. Sure, obviously you'd rather prefer PvP stuff, which will most likely have higher bears. But in my case, when I have access to all the mythic gear that I want, eventually when we all kill all the bosses in the raid, because we're still kind of struggling with that. I don't think I'll be using many items from PvP. Maybe there's a case to be made with a neck, which will have a lot of bursts, and there's not that many options that will have any sort of burst close to that from PvE content, and I just don't know if I want to bother with PvP at all for one item, but we'll see about that. Yeah, you just kind of want to be getting the same stats as we were in Season 1. Alright, then what about shards? What about the shards of domination, right? So if you're a PvE player, as I said before in the beginning of the video, you should be looking to get a little bit into raiding. It's really gonna help. Now the shards on their own, they're not that massive for getting into Mythic Plus, but they always help, and any help is always gonna be very welcome when you're trying to push the highest keys and get any sort of like score from them. So yeah, it kinda sucks if you don't like raiding, and but anyway, you trust me, you should look into it if you can. It is very, very helpful. Especially, well, we'll talk about what shards you want to be using as well. One of the main shards that you should be looking to get is the shard of, let me see, shard of Kier. The shard of Kier gives you a massive shield that over a whole dungeon will amount to about like 500k healing down total, something like that, if you have it at max rank. So that is a lot. That is like more than your shielding words conduit will do. I think that's the name of the conduit, but that is a lot of free healing that you will get just from having that shard equipped. So that's one of the biggest outliers that you might really want to be like. You need to keep that in mind when you're like dying to something, because that shit is massive, and if you don't have it, you really want to be getting it. Then for the rest of the shards are just, honestly, you just want to get as many shards that like give you damage. So there's a lot of shards that are kind of useless when going into Mythic Plus, and for the most part, despite the one that we just talked about, the shard of Kier, that by the way is one of the frost shards, all the other shards are whatever. So you really want to just be looking at getting any shard that gives you damage. So there's 4 of those shards. There is a shard of these nuts. It's one of the unholy shards. This one gives you it's an increased damage down to the target, stacking up to 3 times. So it just gives you a little bit of damage. It stacks up to be 1.25 increased damage on the target. So that is something. It's already 1.25% more damage than you're doing on a target. That is pretty nuts. And honestly, I'm not sure if it stacks with things like consecration on every single target. I don't even know. But that's probably something that happens, and if that is the case, it's even bigger. So that's one of the shards that you want to be getting. Another shard that you want to be getting is another unholy shard called the shard of Zed, which gives you an unholy aura that drains some health from nearby enemies, and it's just a ticking dot that will give you some it will do some healing. It's like some sort of leech, and it also does a little bit of damage. So it is nice. It's not the biggest one, but it's definitely something that you want to be getting, because all the other options, despite the ones that we are gonna be talking now next, they don't add any damage, and they add very minimal healing. So other shards that you want to be looking into getting is the shard of Core. This one is another frost shard, and this one increases your damage done by 1.5% for 20 seconds when attacking an enemy that you haven't attacked yet. So this is a buff that you will get. It doesn't have to do anything with the mob itself, but whenever you hit a mob that you haven't attacked yet, so like for example any of the ghosts in the 3rd boss of Halls of Atonement, that will give you a damage increase. So yeah, that's pretty nice. There's a lot of cases where you can kind of like keep on hitting mobs that will just come and go. In any way, it's a big damage increase for like the first couple seconds of like going into a back anyway. So very decent amount of damage increase. And the last shard you want to be getting is the shard of Beck, which increases the damage down by 1.5% when you have about 50% more health than your target. So this is up more than you think. It's up almost like a lot of time. It's definitely gonna have a lot of uptime, and yeah, it's also a big damage increase. It's another one of the shards that you want to be looking into getting, because it gives you some extra damage, and that's really all we want out of this kind of small bits of new content that we have here. It's not the most interesting stuff ever, I know, it's kinda dull. It's just passive damage increases, little buff and little procs that we get here and there. It is boring as fuck, and honestly, if you don't raid and you just wanna do keys and you kinda care about pushing keys and getting some score, yeah, it sucks having to think about getting into raiding just for this, and especially because you are kind of limited as well. You have to wear those domination pieces from the raid, which might not be your biggest item level piece. If you ever are in the situation where you don't know what item you should be like picking, you should definitely be, or rather equipping, you should go to questionablyepic.com and try to figure it out using that website. It is really helpful. If you haven't ever used it, definitely should check it out. It's the go-to website for any questions about gearing or stats in general. What's better for this, for that, for raiding, for Mythic Plus. In general, it's your go-to in terms of know-how of what is the best item for this, for that, trinkets and stuff. Also, now that we talk about trinkets, what trinkets do we want to use now in Mythic Plus? Luckily, it is no longer a matter of using PvP trinkets. That thing's done. They're kinda got it now, especially since the item level is low, but even then, there is much better options. So, myself, I am using the trinket from the eye, from the second boss in the raid. That is a pretty strong trinket. It has a very high uptime, and it gives you quite a lot of secondary stats of whatever your highest secondary stat is. So even though it requires you to be about 50% HP, the amount of time that you're gonna be about 50% HP is humongous. It's like most of the time. Yes, whenever you need the most, that healing power, that will be gone because you will be under 50%. But it is still a lot of uptime. It's excuse me, it's intellect main stat anyway, so definitely a very strong trinket. And for the second option, or rather, your first option should obviously be Changeling. If ever the PvP trinkets in Season 1 were either nerfed or just slightly not as powerful, you would always be using Changeling. Changeling is obviously a very strong trinket, it gives you intellect main stat, and then you get a haste proc or whatever secondary stat proc you want to be getting, but usually of course haste. So those are your go-to trinkets for Mythic Plus for the most part, and that's also according to what Questionably Epic will be saying when you are like looking at what the best trinket is for Mythic Plus. Oh shit, I almost forgot about the most exciting piece of content from Shadowlands, Soulbinds and Conduits. Yeah, we're still using Theotar for the most part. I've seen some people using something like Draven with Seraphine or whatever. There's some other builds around, but myself only been running Theotar. Most people only been running Theotar. Yeah, same as before. We want to be getting that what you call the thing for the versatility. It's called Wasteland Propriety. Yep, that's a strong amount of versatility on yourself and your allies. So in some dungeons you still want to be dropping Ashen before the key starts, so you get the burst buff. Although it's kind of pointless if you're gonna be dropping Ashen as soon as you like start killing stuff in the key, because you will refresh the buff anyway. But yeah, it's something to look to. Conduits. Well, we got the empowered conduit slots now. For now, for the time being, and as I'm making this video right now, we only have one empowered conduit slot, that being the first one, it's an endurance conduit, so I have my shield and wards in there. Now, empowered conduits, what that does is it increases the item level of the conduit on that slot as if it was 2 ranks higher. You don't actually see the item level being displayed in the tooltip, but the effect shows with a higher effect or a percent. For example, Shield and Wards is 30%. Yeah, because Word of Glory grants you a shield that prevents damage equal to 30% of healing down by Word of Glory for 10 seconds. So it's just stronger, but it does basically the same. So eventually we'll just have every single conduit slot empowered. so it's not really very interesting, but for the time being you just want to be slotting whatever your strongest conduit is in whatever empower slot that you have available. In this case I am using shielding wards in that endurance conduit slot. You can also be slotting golden path in there, because golden path is also very strong, and yeah, that's why I'm using it. So what I'm using right now is obviously shielding wards and golden path down there on the next, or rather the second endurance conduit slot. For the potency ones, we're using pretty much the same as we were before. We're using focus light for increased holy shock crit chance, and we are still using the Hallow Discernment or the Ashen Hallow conduit, because it's still, even though it's been fixed rather than nerfed, it is still a decent amount of extra healing and damage. And yeah, the only way you can upgrade that conduit is through conduit upgrades, coming from either doing Porthia and farming the research and buying it from the conduit upgrade items, or through getting the conduit upgrade items from the adamant bolts, from getting like the maxed rank from a Torghast run. So kick W, I'm not doing that. Yeah, so that means if you want to upgrade your conduits, or at least that one conduit, you only have one option, and that is to go ahead and farm some catalog research. I guess that's the name. Yep, not very fun, but that's the way to go. So what about the finesse conduits? The setup that I have right now is giving up one of the finesse conduits that's actually pretty big. That's the Lights Barding. I guess I could switch Lights Barding with Echoing Blessings in the setup that I have right now. It is up to you. You can like use freedom to give some movement speed to your allies, or you can use it on yourself, or you'd rather have a faster or rather a longer horse. It's up to you. I'm deciding to give up Lights Barding for now and just going with one more endurance conduit slot, because it really helps. Like giving up the movement speed. Movement speed is okay, but it's not that huge. Double Door of Shadows, it's okay, it's not that huge. Unless you're like maybe in the other side, but whatever, you're not losing much time from not running that, and the increase like healing on yourself from having an extra endurance conduit slot is pretty big. It's not that massive, but it's definitely noticeable. And of course I was actually forgetting about the last one, or the third endurance conduit slot. That's the new conduit called Condensed Animosphere. Now this one just procs a self-healing on yourself every 10 seconds whenever you take damage. And it heals you for, sorry, a little bit of a percent of healing. It's like 4% health, 5% health, something like that. It is not massive, and it doesn't really do that much healing, but over the whole dungeon it will amount to about 100k healing, which is alright. Now, would you rather have extra 100k healing on yourself throughout the dungeon, or increase movement speed with like Horse or Freedom? That is up to you to decide. For now, I am just going with the safest option here, and just using as many endurance conduit slots as I can. I guess that might change, I don't know, it is what I'm doing right now. It is not a very strong conduit, definitely not that very strong, so if you don't have all 3 endurance conduit slots, you should not slot that one. That's the one that you want to be avoiding to use, because that's the weakest one of them all. And what about the last row on the Theotar Soulbind? That's actually quite interesting. That's something that we got not that long ago. And the way that works is you get an item, you go and you speak to Theotar in Sinful, and that is the order hall for Benthir, and you just want to be, you speak to him, he gives you an item, and you only click that item, and yeah, that's it. You get a buff. It gives you a bunch of either secondary stat or main stat, and that's about it. The item has 1 hour cooldown, and the buff has a 4 hour cooldown, or rather duration. So you can re-roll the thing every hour if you don't get what you want. The best thing to get from that buff is either a burst or intellect. Versatility is very good. You get quite more versatility than you do get intellect from the buff. So there's a point to be made in whether of which of those is better. Honestly, the extra burst also gives you damage reduction, so it's kind of there. Like I don't know. I guess burst is superior in this case, but. Anyhow, whatever you get is welcome. You just want to be looking to get some more burst or intellect, if anything. But that's about it on the Soulbinds for now. Really not that much has changed. It's still kind of a boring system, fire and forget, but there is some decisions to be made here and there. So, other than that, it's just something that you might forget about when you go from raiding to doing Mythic Plus. So that always happens to me. Kind of an annoying little thing, but yeah, still pretty much just as before, with a little bit of a new addition here and there. Might as well talk a little bit about the season so far, how it's going and how I think it will go. For now, the season is okay. It's going, I think it's better than it was before in terms of the meta. Yeah, right now everybody just wants Boomy, Windwalker, and the Fire Mage, just like before. Maybe Arcane Mage in some dungeons. So it's kind of shit still, but I think it's better than it was before, honestly. There's many more things that are viable, many more comps that are okay. Tanks are way better than it was before for sure. Demon Hunters kind of left in the dirt, but many more tanks are kind of viable. Blood Decay is popping off, as you can see in this key. Barely ever have to heal a Blood Decay, honestly, and they do pretty decent damage. In this dungeon in particular, you also benefit from all those shenanigans from DKs, being able to get the mob for themselves, so like being able to use the mob abilities, which it's kind of nice. It gives some benefits. It has some benefits to it. Of course, most people are just playing Guardian Druid. Guardian Druid is doing a lot of damage, and it's kind of immortal whenever they have Incarnap with that legendary that gives them a shield whenever they thrash. So in those regard, eventually whenever the meta is like fully settled down and people are pushing the highest keys, of course there will barely be many like changes that can be made to a comp. For the most part it will be set in stone, but that doesn't really affect almost anybody really. So I think it's way better than it was before. Now, what kind of keys there will be done like at the end of this season? Like people were saying that we might see keys on the level 30 and such, like plus 30 Plaguefall, plus 30 Necrotic Wake. Honestly, there's been a lot of changes down to the dungeons. There's a lot of things that have changed since Season 1, especially the introduction of the Tormentors with the new affix, so it's kind of rough to tell right now. Highest keys that have been done so far are just 26, and we are already like 2 months into the season. But yeah, there's still a lot of min-maxing to be done, a lot of gear to be farmed. People are still not even playing all that much. There's a lot of very high teams that haven't really been pushing too much. Ourselves have been doing some pretty decent keys. We've managed to do some. This 25 is our biggest key so far. We also got into a Plagueful 26, which we were scammed out of. I have a clip in my Twitch channel where you can see what happened there, but we kind of got scammed out of a 26 key with a bug happening with one of the snipers in Plagueful. Yeah, kind of shit. It's a bit of a shit show, but so far we're doing some decent keys, and we might definitely see some 30s. I don't know. Eventually, whenever it's Omega min-max and like everybody's got the best gear, everybody's like just focus on Mythic Plus and the rating is completely over, and people kind of come back to the game, because the main issue right now is people don't really feel like playing the game, I believe. There's a lot of people that are just taking breaks or even just quitting, so yeah, we'll see about that. Eventually, whenever like new patch is coming or some changes are made, namely the introduction of the new Mythic Plus dungeon, Tazabesh. Eventually, I think it's gonna be coming with 9.1.5, right? So that will definitely shake up things, and people might come back for that. But yeah, we might see some 30s, we might see a Plagueful 30 here and there, but it's rough to say. I think it's for sure that we'll see some 28s in the next couple months. 30, I don't know about that. It's a long way to go so far. In terms of like having to play Tyrannical and Fortified, honestly I don't mind it. I'm actually enjoying Tyrannical way more than I thought. I even think that I enjoy Tyrannical way more than I do Fortified. Honestly, Fortified is kind of boring, as whenever you like once you experience what it's like to blaze through packs and just focus on bosses. Honestly, I enjoy bosses way more than I do packs. I don't know, I just feel like this is a way more compelling way of playing the game. But anyhow, you gotta play both, so it is whatever. You have to deal with that now. I don't mind it that much. It's just kind of shit that you have to play like every single week, kind of, if you wanna like be like stay up there in the ranks or whatever. But that doesn't really matter always, because eventually you'll just like, only thing you have to do is like play for like 2 weeks at the very end of the season, and that's it. Whenever there's like one of the last push weeks, you just go ham there and that's it. Anyway, we're not just playing here for ranks, we're just enjoying ourselves, having fun with friends. That's the main thing about this, just enjoying yourself and playing the game, so long as you enjoy it. Which is, it's honestly getting kind of hard enjoying this game, in particular raiding, because it's just the game itself is making it hard to like it, honestly. it's the unfortunate situation that we are in right now with Blizzard and stuff. And as the key is coming to a close, I guess I might as well try and wrap it up here real quick. Yeah, we're playing again. We've been playing for a while, but haven't really been streaming as much. But yeah, if you want to watch live, you can watch live at twitch.tv/myeu. You can see it on the screen right now. I'm there whenever I'm playing keys. I'll stream. Whenever I raid, I'll stream. Maybe not always, but yeah, that's what you can find me playing. Yeah, that's the option if you want to be seeing these keys live. Of course, uploading videos on YouTube. Haven't done that for a while. It's been a long time, right? But I kind of want to do at least one of each key per season. That's kind of my goal. Just like, even though I haven't really been talking much about this key in particular now, actually nothing at all. The goal is to actually go back into it and maybe comment on what the best route is, or like what route we're doing, whatever. Just like showcase the key whenever we do a key that I feel proud of. Yeah, I mean, expect some more videos. I kind of have some videos on the works. I had some requests for some people that want to like look into how to best, like a kind of a guide on how to heal the raid, which I'm looking into doing that. Will take some work, but I'll get to do that as well. Sort of like a build guide. I mean, kind of this video has been a bit of a guide on how to hold the Paladin this season, right? I guess we could call it that. How to hold the Paladin in Season 2 so far. But yeah, I guess this wraps it up, guys. Thank you very much for watching. As again, I'll be live on Twitch. Come hang out if you can. Drop a follow, please. And yeah, also drop a sub. I guess I already said that before, but please drop a sub if you can. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace out. Bye-bye.